Hey guys, John here. So check out the patch I'm working on. So we have that version, and we also have this pattern knob here where we can switch this to the right, and it's going to change it up a little bit. So yeah, that's kind of the idea here. So I wanted to kind of blend metal and synthesis together. So the guitars that you're hearing is all synthesized, obviously, I'm sure you can probably tell, but it still gives that vibe, right? I think that if you want a metal guitar, you should probably record a metal guitar, but there's something charming about bringing that type of style into a synthesizer. So we're going to kind of go over this a little bit here. So we're going to look at this patch a little bit, and then maybe we can actually recreate something very similar. Now, the cool part about Avenger here is that this this stack here is what basically makes the guitar sound. And this first oscillator is the guitar. This next one is the bass. So really, we're using two oscillators and the drums here. Now, this is on the heavy kit right here from the Doomstep pack, which is a very cool drum kit. So essentially, let's talk about this a little bit. Let's bring our pattern back to the left here. And the only thing I have in this session really is just the notes and then just a couple noise transitions here. Right, that's pretty much all it is. So essentially what we can do if we mute the bass and the drums, so if we play this here, that's basically the sound that we're going to be making here. So essentially what happens, we have a saw wave, and this is going to be going into this effects rack, which we're going to get into for the whole thing. But essentially, this is the EQ curve, right? Some nice lows to kind of accentuate the beef of that guitar, taking out some of that nasty stuff. And then what's kind of interesting with guitars, what I actually like to do is low and high pass them. So we're kind of like scooping a certain section that we want to carve to, because really on the high end stuff of guitars, you really don't need that much of that. So that's kind of the purpose here if you're kind of looking at that, why we would do something like that. So then we have some distortion, we have some multiband distortion, another EQ, compression, a couple delays, and then the reverb. So the next distortion here, the algorithm is going to be on Logic. I found this one sounded the best, level 100%. And some of these knobs I kind of just moved to kind of find that sweet spot for it. Tones around like 400, something like that. And mix about 72. And then there's another multi-band distortion here, which I crank some of the highs and the mids here. And then the EQ is post this distortion here to kind of really accentuate after the fact, after we're distorting, kind of sculpt it a little bit more. And for here, we're kind of just bumping around maybe 130, again, doing another low pass here. And kind of this guy is just kind of a small subtlety, because there's a point in this type of guitar sound where if it's too much of that high range, it kind of doesn't really sound that great. And then we have some compression here. I guess nothing too crazy. Yeah, this one's kind of just default ratio here and just brought this down to where I felt appropriate. And the outputs, yeah, that's kind of arbitrary, I suppose, just down a little bit. And then we have some delay. So this is kind of the interesting spot where this first delay is in a pattern, a time of 2.5. And we're really filtering this quite a lot here. And the mix is kind of low in this one. And then we go into a second delay, and this is going to be just at a quarter note. I feel like this gives a little bit time to breathe. Generally, I like doing eighth notes for a lot of patches, but I feel like this one, the quarter note kind of really filled that spot. And we're filtering it a little bit differently. Now, this wasn't such a methodological, whatever that word is. This is kind of more so just listening and kind of finding where do I want those delays to sit. It's not like I'm just thinking, okay, it has to be exactly here and exactly here. It's just kind of in that ballpark what sounds okay. And the mix is a default at 20. That's what it comes at. And then we just have some reverb here, the AA reverb, which we're going to be in the room type arena. Shorter time here, 26.36, so it's not too long. And then the pre-delay is about 15 and a little bit of filtering going on. So nothing too crazy. The mix is also kind of low, like 11.8. So we have that. Now, if we take this all off, we have this here. Now, what's kind of interesting as well So in this oscillator here, we're actually doing a couple things. So if we go into the voicing, I added 2 extra voices at an octave above, so plus 12 semitones, and panning these left and right to get more of a stereo feel out of this type of guitar. The unison is 4 voices, and really this this tuning is pretty non-detuned, so it's pretty tuned close together. Because the more you widen this out, doesn't sound too good. So that's that point. And then for the ARP, which is making the whole pattern, we're going to be doing something like this. Now, this kind of looks a little crazy kind of going on here. So let's kind of just maybe start a little bit fresh and kind of look this over here. So what we could probably do, I want to keep this instance open. And I do have another instance of Avenger here. It's called bass. It's on a preset here. However, for this guy, let's open up our mixer here. Open up this guy. So this is kind of a standard bass. I keep my presets, but we don't really need this at the moment. So I was kind of thinking, let's do this again. Let's go initialize again. Okay, so we had about 4 voices of unison. Let's kind of bring this up here. So we have something like that. And again, I added some of these voices, which I actually did a little bit later on inside the patch, but since we're kind of here, we might as well do that. So plus 12 and pan these left and right. And we're going to go to the ARP and let's see actually what we did for our filter as well here. So for this guy, we did the Nexus 12, which, yeah, that's right, Nexus 12, something like that. And then, I don't know, do we know resonance here? We're kind of up around this range, a little bit of modulation there. And depending on the type of patch or the type of guitar that you want to make, it really depends on the amp in this sense. So if you're kind of doing really fast notes, then you could, you know, increase some release or drop down the sustain or whatnot. But for this, I didn't really want any release, so I kept that down. Sustain maybe down a little bit like that. And then the decay, something maybe around like that-ish or so. You know, looks kind of similar, maybe a little bit more of a curve there. But we're going to get into this a little bit more. Okay, so some of the cool fun part here is inside this ARP, right? So here what we did, instead of going for this mode is like up, down, alternate, we went to chords. So here we can kind of decide what type of, I guess, sound that we want. So for this, mainly most guitars are going to be power chords, kind of that deal. So we can go to like a power fifth, which is going to be kind of this sound, right? If we extend this here a little bit. Right, so here we can kind of do something rhythmic. Maybe. Let's see what we had for our filter here. So we had a little bit longer of a decay there, something kind of like that-ish or so. Yeah, that looks about okay. And I also, another cool thing about Avenger, you can save these racks here, what I have here. So in that sense, where is it on this massive list here? Yeah, metal guitar. So you have something like that. And then also this detune, let's bring this down a little bit. Just this knob alone really kind of sells it, because up here where we're at before, it's just kind of too swirly and not really, I guess, present and tight. So as we turn this, that kind of really accentuates that sound. Okay, so back in our ARP, we can kind of decide, okay, what do we want? Maybe our pattern length, we can go a little bit longer, or really depends on how long we want to do this for. Maybe we can do some Phrygian, how that would sound. That's kind of cool right there. So maybe we can do something a little bit more. So maybe add some longer ones, or maybe for this we can kind of extend that. So we have that, and we have all these extra stuff. So a cool feature in Avenger, if we go here and we go maybe copy first half and then go back here and then paste to second half, then we essentially have the same thing again. And we can kind of change a little variations, kind of things like that. Or maybe we can kind of mess around with some of these, whatever sounds kind of cool. Maybe we can extend this on a little bit longer. That might be kind of cool. So I kind of like this here again. So let's copy the first half and then let's paste this again to the second half. Okay, so we have this. This is kind of cool. Now, something that I did like experimenting with is the strum feature. So if we go here to the strum edit and then just kind of think of this how, I guess, a guitar would sound. So if I have a guitar in my hand, this is the first one, maybe I might strum it downwards. So maybe you can bring down a little bit like that. Maybe bring this up a little bit and kind of just, I guess, alternate these a little bit like that. And kind of just try to do the small little things that would kind of maybe makes sense for a guitar player to play. So again, we're going down, maybe up, and they don't all have to be the exact same length. You can move them to what your ear is liking. So we can just move these, I guess, up a little bit like that and see what happens in this case. So bring that up maybe like that. So do you kind of see how it doesn't hit all the notes at the same time? That's kind of exaggerated here. It's if we maybe make this really slow or something versus, so it kind of helps that out a little bit. So let's go back to 16 and turn our stack on. Okay, so we have something like this here now. Drums obviously are going to change this quite a bit here. So I think where we're in the doom step one here. So doom step, let's go here. And I think it was the heavy kit. Yeah, this one's actually really cool. Let's turn our sequencer on. So this is a cool drum kit. We do need to do a couple changes here. So for this first one, this first oscillator, let's kind of maybe just bring some of the stuff down a little bit. Maybe in the compressor as well. And there's a couple things I want to do with this drum set. So especially on the snare, maybe we can add some reverb to this guy. Maybe some overhead. So I guess add a lot of that reverb. Can do that as well here. Why not? Why not? Let's add some reverb there. So for the kick drum, so for this guy, let's go to the edit and then go to the right here for EQ. And there's a couple changes I'd like to make. So for the low end, I kind of maybe want to go a little bit of a wider cue, but kind of make the low end a little beefy, maybe around like 50 or so like that. Make a little bit more beefy. And then the top end, we want to get that click for that kind of metal sound. Something kind of like that. And maybe increase the volume as well. So that's kind of cool. And maybe add some doubles, something like that. Maybe another one here. Maybe add all four there. Maybe some of these like this as well. Why not? Okay, so we kind of have this guitar at itself here. So this is kind of cool in this sense. So now maybe, let's say we want to add a bass or something like that. So let's mute this for now. Let's add another oscillator, and we're going to use a whole different stack. And let's another filter, and probably another amp as well. Actually, I just remembered this as well. So this is one thing that I just remembered. I forgot I put in the other patch. But for oscillator 1, let's go ahead and unmute this real quick. We have our guitar. I found that this is cool. I like that sound, but we can improve it just a little bit more, and that's using the shaper module. So let's go ahead and add the shaper again after the filter. I feel like it's nicer that way. And with this, you can kind of scope, or not scope, what is it? I guess scope through, what am I looking for? I don't know. Basically just look around, sweep, Jesus Christ, that was it, sweep through this here. And kind of find that tone that you want. And again, there's so many different algorithms here that you can kind of just flip through these and see what's right for the type of sound you're going for. So again, there's a lot of ones to go through. Soft might be fine for this. So I'll leave that up to you to kind of find that sweet spot for you, because depending on what key you're playing, how it sounds, what your arp's doing in that case, that's going to kind of determine the best sound for your case. So we have that for the most part done. Let's label this, I guess, guitar. That's fine. Guitar. And then for the other oscillator, which is going to be our bass, something kind of like this here. So this guy is obviously going to the wrong effect stack. So let's change this to 2. Let's go to our second amp, our second filter. And then also we need to turn this on an ARP, and we need another ARP for this. So this is going to go to ARP 2. And just as we've done before, there's a couple different types of basses that you can make. The FM bass can be kind of cool. I do feel like what we're going to do here might sound a little better for that case. So let's bring up our mix and let's bring down our panning. So you have something like that. And the low pass 24 is generally a good spot, and give us some modulation here. So kind of like a traditional synth bass, but we're going to do it a little bit differently. As far as like the decay for the filter, kind of things like that. We can change the stuff with the sustain. We're going to kind of see once we get there. So we have this for now. And again, what we generally do with our EQ, let's go and open this. Let's go for maybe a high pass. Bring this down here and bring up the Q. And we can, I always like doing the high shelf. I might just do this a little bit here. And then for our compressor, generally let's go like 8 to 1 and really squash this puppy. So if we mute this guy. We kind of have something like that. And depending on how much modulation we have on the envelope here, it kind of gives us a more of a synth bass if we bring this to the right, obviously, right? And if we bring this down a little bit, it can just sound like a bass pair just kind of walking the bass, as they say. However, once you have both of these in here, the more walking bass you have, the easier it gets lost. So there is that. So that's kind of where that little mixing kind of thing comes into play here. And what might be cool to get the drums to pop a little bit for this guy is if we did a little bit of a mini chain, sync this to our bass drum, and then brought this down a little bit. Which means we can even maybe squeeze in a little bit more volume. So we have something kind of like that. Maybe let's give it some more. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Okay, that's kind of cool for now. So back in our arps. So for this first one, we kind of have this pattern going here, right? So we can maybe even do something kind of similar, right? So maybe for this first arp, let's scroll this back here a little bit like that. So maybe we can erase those for now. And we had something kind of like this here. Let's see, let's do maybe something like that here. And this, again, so maybe we want to do something. Let's actually put these all back for now. Make it a little bit snappy here with the sustain down and kind of hone in our decay. Okay, so here. All right, let's do some stuff here. Maybe just 2 of these like that. Maybe we can do kind of 3s or something like that. Maybe it might be interesting. And then maybe a whole note kind of deal, or lengthen it. Or maybe 2, because we also have to keep in mind as the filter decays, maybe we want this a little bit longer here or here. And then maybe we can match some notes here as well. So here we're going 1 and then we're going 1 here. So maybe we can kind of reflect that like that. Now I'll leave it up to you. So here we're kind of doing the pattern length of 32, but we are copying the front and the back. So it's essentially the same thing. So we could make some small little adjustments here if we'd like to and kind of reflect that in the second arp. So I'm not going to do that in this video, but that's just something to be aware of what you could do. So in this case, it really doesn't matter because it's just going to be looping the same thing. And maybe for this bass, I might want to do a little bit of some multi-band distortion. See how that sounds with it. Maybe not. Maybe not. And maybe for this bass, maybe we can make this a little bit more tighter tuned. Something kind of like that, maybe. Maybe a little sustain might be kind of nice there. Okay, so we have some of these pieces here. And then, okay, so for the other patch I did here, so I did like an octave up, but I don't want these notes kind of playing like that. So if we go to the zones here, I really don't want that bass up there like that. So I can just bring this down like that. Then so we have this here, and then I also went into the Master Effects, turned on the EQ, and maybe did a little bit of compression here, and kind of just sculpted the overall sound as well. And remember here, for this master EQ and stuff, small moves. Okay, so we have something kind of like this going on. It's kind of cool, so we're pretty close. Maybe the top end here is kind of nice with the cymbals and all that. So for this guy, maybe what I might want to do for this one here is maybe bring down the lows just a little bit. Okay, that's kind of cool. And same with the kick as well. We might have pushed that a little bit too much here. Okay, so now the next thing, and I talked about this in a previous video, however, we can do some pattern switching. So for this one, let's go and call this pattern or something like that. So for our first arp, this is kind of what we have. Right, it's solar guitar. Right, so for the second one, let's right click this B here, something like that. And what we can do is drag our pattern over to here, bring this to the right, and turn it till B is going to be playing like this. Right, so this pattern essentially is toggling between A and B. And maybe for this, what we can do is erase that. And for this one, let's do again power fifths. And maybe we can do, what would this sound like? Ooh, maybe a little seventh or a fifth up here for 7 semitones up. Like dun 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 dun. Then boom and boom again, something like that. Let's see here. Maybe go down 4? One, two. So let's see if we copy this first half and then paste this to the second half as well. Kind of a slower pace kind of thing here. So if that's the case, so then now let's solo the bass here, and we'll go to the second arp, and we're gonna do the same thing. So right click the second B, and then we're gonna drag this pattern here, and we can do the same modulation amount, so 37. So it's just kind of doing that. So for the second arp on B, we're kind of doing those like slow kind of things like that. So here. And then remember we did the 7th up there, or the 5th, which is 7 semitones up. Then kind of 2 like that, 1 and 2. And then what do we do here as well? -4. So we're going to scroll this here. Maybe, again, we don't have to do the doubles here again. We can just go like that. Okay, so that should be fine here. So we have our bass in the guitars doing those. So that's kind of cool, but the drums are the same, and maybe we want to change that as well. So we can go to our drum sequencer, and we can do the same thing, right click on B, drag and drop this pattern here as well, and then again, the same modulation amount. And for this guy, so we're on A, we can right click this, or is it? Yeah, it's right click copy, and then for the B, right click and paste, or you can just left click, whatever. And here we can maybe make some different changes. So maybe we can change up some kicks. You know, maybe kind of remove a little bit of that stuff since it's a little slower. Maybe 2 here. Maybe make the 3 here. And we could change the snare speed, but this is a little kind of a slower kind of headbanging riff. So let's see what it sounds like together. So this is the first one. Oh, wait, top here. Maybe I want to have the triples here, or like some really quick kicks like that. That might be kind of cool. Maybe here too. We'll see. Maybe take that one away. Maybe stack these. And then maybe this should actually be snare. And take these two away. So now here, since we're doing kind of like that da-da-da-da-da-da, maybe the kicks should follow that as well. Another one here. That might be kind of cool. So with our guitars again, this is going to amp 1, and maybe we can decide how we want the sustain to go. Especially in our ARP as well. I think... that actually might be okay since they're not too long. Maybe this guy, so this brings back over to A. It's actually okay, so we have our sustain and something like that. That should be fine. Definitely pretty cool. And another thing we added as well in the other patch is basically putting the drums and the bass on the macros. Now, you can do it on the same one. Sometimes that works and it's fine. I split them in two. So if we're here in the mixer, we can bring down our drums and then also bring down the bass as well. So the first one, I guess I can put on drums, and we'll call this here drums. And then we can double click here, enter 50. And then the same thing for our bass. Double click here and go 50. And label this as bass. So if we played here, so that might be kind of cool. And then up here, it's just the kind of the higher octave guitar that you could play as well. Now, in this case, sometimes maybe I want a little bit more brightness out of the guitar. And if we want that, then we have some EQs that we can open up a little bit. So we have the pre one here that's kind of chopping off a lot of that. So we could open this up a little bit. And then the other key EQ as well. But you got to be careful, right? Because you open it up all the way. That stuff's not that great. So we have that. Now, I guess another thing that I'm kind of thinking about, we could do some stuff with the master filter. So let's see, I guess we can go filter, see what that would sound like. And if we had it all the way down, Did we modulate? No, we didn't. I was like, why is that not moving? Okay, so here we go. Let's modulate the whole thing. One thing actually, yeah, so that bass is triggering here, and I do not like that, so I forgot to do this here. So we have our bass, and our end note is G7, so I might even actually bring this down like that. Let's see. Okay, that's cool. I'm cool with that. So again, let's bring this down. Not bad, right? So I guess some final touches. I mean, we can go on for days for a patch like this. It's a lot of fun. But we could maybe increase the output a little bit, kind of make it a little bit louder, compress it a little bit more, because I like that sound for this. And bring down the ratio a bit too. Ooh, that's kind of sounding electric. And it's just nice, the contrast. So there we go. It's not like an exact guitar, but it's still pretty badass, right? And again, like I said in the beginning, if you really want to have that metal guitar, then you probably should record a metal guitar, but there's still something charming about a synthesized quote-unquote metal guitar. I mean, we eat imitation crab, right? So there's a whole reason for that. And again, actually not again, I don't think I've even mentioned this. So we're sending a saw wave through this effects chain right here. Now, the point of this is that we can really send whatever we want to down this. So if we solo this guitar, that's the sound we're getting, but maybe we send a square. It's not too different. But the point is, I guess, we're changing the bass. Is that what it's doing? I was like, Jesus Christ, why am I not hearing anything? So the bass, we can go back to actually a saw. I was like, why is that not changing a little bit? Psychoacoustic, it's like, you know when you're compressing something, you're like, yeah, that's right, and the compressor's bypassed. We've all been guilty of that. Okay, so guitar, good Lord. Okay, here we go. Here's a saw wave. The sign's kind of interesting. Because we know with a sine wave, we're really just, all the effects are doing the work, because we're just sending a tone through it. Noise? No, that's gross. So that's kind of cool, right? So the effects stack is kind of done for the most part. Yeah, you can move the knobs here and kind of change it a little bit, but it's really interesting what you put into that effects. Like that sounds like a really thin electric guitar, but maybe with this bass it might sound cool. Let's check it out. That's okay. This one's actually kind of badass. Action saw. Bullet gun or gum? I can't really do that. Okay, this one, I think this might be my favorite. Check out the other pattern. That's the one. Oh, that's nasty. Okay. So that, I mean, from here, you can kind of go to your heart's content, but let's kind of just go over these, the stack here again. You can always take a look at these settings here if you'd like to and kind of see what's going on here. EQ, and then we go to distortion here. Take a look at this. You can pause if you'd like to. Another multiband distortion, really the mids and the highs are cranking up here. Another EQ, sculpting the sound a little bit more. And then we're compressing, and then we're doing the 2 delays, and we can actually maybe increase some of these and some reverb. Maybe I want to and do that. Let's see. That might be interesting. And there we go. So give this a try. It's a lot of fine tuning to kind of find the sound that you like, but that's essentially the process there. So yeah, hopefully you learned something, and we'll see you in the next one.